Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Medical Mindset Coach podcast. And of course, I disappeared off the radar for a little bit. Well, simply only because podcasts right now are the hobby, which I'm going to do my best efforts just to keep nurturing, for the foreseeable future, because there's so much goodness I want to share. But I've been really busy with work and studies, and I unfortunately incurred and I had an accident where I had my nose broken in sport, and then 6 weeks later I had to have it rebroken at the hospital to get it back in place. So that's obviously taken some time. But in between that, my partner, who's a professional athlete, was in a competition in the same sport called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, if you haven't heard of it, and had his arm, well, technically his elbow broken. So it's been a bit of a manic time, but right now, early on a Sunday morning, I'm making an opportunity to try and speak to you and get more information out there. But interestingly, the purpose of today's discussion is something, I think that's going to touch home with everyone at the moment. And, we've come out of this, I'm going to say this sort of this thing of COVID. Like, what is it? What has it been? Has it been a blur, a mirage, or this unreal thing that just happened for a significant period of time and then has just disappeared into thin air? And now people just talk of it like it's a common cold, and like, oh, I had the flu, I had COVID, that kind of thing. But what is coming up with basically most, if not all, the patients I work with, at some point in our sessions, I'm seeing a frequent raised thing about mental health. And what's very interesting, because I have a couple of patients that work with me, or heads of HR in top firms and top companies, that lead hundreds of thousands of staff globally. And of course, since COVID, people were required to work from home, whether people got furloughed or people actually could physically work from home. But it's been quite interesting now to see that from the feedback that I've gotten from these HR patients, human resources, for those who don't know what that means, is that there's a big pull at work now to try and get people back into the office to do at least 3 days a week. And then speaking with a lot of people who work in corporate, that is sort of the general rule of thumb now, that people are trying to get in 3 days a week. And almost the feedback is like it's pulling teeth. People are really, really caught in this routine now that they work from home, stay in their pajamas, and really conduct their lives differently. But what's very interesting is that even though people are very comfortable, and I'm going to use the word complacent to do this, the next issue is that we're lacking that sense of social interaction, that sense of community, that natural sense of tribe that's inherent in our nature and our genetics. And, people are really happy to compromise one for the other. But I think I need to address this in saying that actually I think it's quite important to maybe consider coming out your shell and re-engaging with society for different aspects of your mental health. Yeah, maybe it's convenient not to have to travel 2-3 hours a day and put on makeup and have to find a really nice outfit, but maybe on the deep underlying subconscious there is other needs that need to be met in that regard. So, really, really interesting. So it's linking what happened, because last night I was showing my partner something on YouTube, and I remembered in 2020 I was invited on a documentary to talk about how mental health is being affected during the COVID or the epidemic, during the lockdown, and what the impact of social media is doing to people, because now that's all you have to live and go by. And, sort of almost like a conditioning and a programming that, again, whether it's conscious or subconscious, we're being programmed with, and, how that's affecting people. And it stimulated this idea for this podcast where I thought, maybe I'm just going to import the audio, of the interviews that were had and the the person that was narrating or conducting the whole project or documentary, because people are not really doing as much as they should be doing, or as a result of still being in this indirect or, self-imposed restriction or lockdown by not leaving the house. A lot of people's mental health definitely is being affected, right? More than ever, or more so than ever, after all the years of working and the work that I'm doing, everyone is throwing around, I'm suffering from anxiety, I'm depressed, I'm this, I'm that. And, whether it's been diagnosed or not, but the fact that you're stating these things is telling me, okay, you're lacking in some tools, right? Some resources, some strategies on how to improve yourself, how to be better. And more so than ever, especially being relevant in my life, is watching that, how important having a structure and strategies and a routine is to our mental health. So what I thought today was, I'm just going to bring in this documentary that we've done, that people can listen to it and just sort of get some feedback and tips on some ideas of what to do and maybe some tools. And of course, as always, which I'll always say, the purpose of this podcast is just to get information out there. And if you want to come see me, because, I'm the one-stop shop, as we joke, that, I can really help with dealing with emotional stress, anxiety, depression, and whether that might be stuff that has happened, from events or accidents or traumatic situations, varying to, maybe there's just a nutritional deficiency in your body or a toxicity overload, and then we can address all of them and really get you back into a state of good health where actually maybe you do not actually need to go on anxiety medication and things, or going to the big pharma, essentially. That yes, it's treating a symptom of something you're experiencing at the moment, which might be just momentary and not actually permanent. But going to the big pharma then would create subsequent consequences of maybe you're damaging your body, or you're creating weakness in your gut biome, and then as a result of that, there's going to be long-term health conditions that I see all the time, and basically occupies most of my time with the work with the people that I work with. So again, my whole strategy is, if we get you knowledgeable now, and I say removing the sheet or the sheath or the veil of ignorance, getting you into the state of the know, then you can make educated choices on what to do. Because right now society's like, hey, you got anxiety, you got depression, go to your doctor, go to your GP and get prescribed some meds. Biggest concern that I have with, Western science and medicine, and whether, for example, here at the NHS, but I know, of course, because I'm from South Africa, how multiple institutions work in terms of Western medicine, is that people put you on stuff, but there's no reviews like, okay, come back to me in 3 months' time and let's see what's happening. People just sort of like a programmed robot go, all right, doctor says I've got to take 2 of these a day. They're wearing the white coat, they must be correct. But actually it's not the case, because side story, when I was in my young years, when I was 17, my father passed away. So I actually ended up being adopted by a lady. And, I realized subsequently with living with her that she had mental health conditions, specifically bipolar. And, so many years later, I'm really grateful for having that experience of understanding and living with someone with a true, deep, ingrained, mental health disorder, and really living the life of the struggle. And one big lesson that I took away from it is that figuring out medication is not a science, it's an art. That, try one of these, 2 of those, 5 of those, and see how you get along. And then it's just constantly a tweak. And then again, people think like, okay, he's got my meds right. But no, your body's changing consistently. Maybe nutritional deficiencies, what your diet is, what stress you're incurring on the day. And, the fine art is that you constantly have to get that tweaked. So I think to myself, well, if people are getting put on meds, and, even meds for mental health conditions, or even gut stuff, gut health issues, there's a common thing called PPI, which, reduces your stomach acid, and you should only be on it for a prescribed amount of time. But no one's doing the review checks, and I'm just like, how do we get people to make more concerted effort to go, hey, doctor, I would like to challenge you because I don't feel this is right for me, or I think I should get off this because I'm not suffering anymore, rather than just going, cool, I'm getting my prescription topped up, right? So what I'm saying, just to be clear, is that if you do have a mental health condition that is, pharmaceutically prescribed, that's great. But still, we can work on conditions. We can provide conditions and support and tools that are natural that can either support you. And maybe potentially this podcast speaks out to people who are, maybe not actually in need of the pharmaceuticals, and just having these few resources in place might actually support that. You won't need that, and we can get you working naturally, supporting yourself, than rather just opting for, I'm going to say, the easy solution, right? But in the case of people who actually need to be on prescribed medication, you can still incorporate these tools that will support your system. And then maybe, for example, you don't need to do a lot more. Maybe you can be working and sustaining that prescribed amount for, longer period of time, right? And there are definitely cases where I can say for sure that people have been incorrectly prescribed and have actually gotten them off it. Obviously in conjunction with working with the doctors or the psychiatrists, because of misdiagnosis, which is a very, very common thing. And again, I'm going to reiterate, always get a second opinion if you're not sure. Maybe 2 Western doctors and maybe 3rd, an alternative holistic doctor as well. Just putting that out there. But anyway, bringing this back to the theme of the day, is that people are experiencing mental health symptoms, I'm going to say, as a result of still living the lockdown life. And as a result, I want you to listen to this documentary. It's not just myself talking. There's quite a couple of people, some people who have suffered from, the lockdown life and how it has impacted their mental health. And then to sort of, with that perspective in mind, apply that to your current life at the moment. And if you think to yourself, okay, let's maybe use this as a moment to do a check-in with yourself. So, like, how is your life today compared to what it was pre-COVID? What has shifted? What has changed? What are pros, positives you've taken from it? What are the negatives? And if we, always say, let's work on negatives, because the positives you don't really need to work on at the moment. So let's get you into positive land, and then we can work on enhancing the positives. But right now, if you think like, okay, actually, I do need to get out more. I do need to exercise more. Actually, I'm not as social as I was, or not seeing my friends as much, or actually I don't have a routine or a structure in place, or, maybe you're not meditating. Maybe you're not taking some self-care out, time out for yourself. Because, the next, I would say big problem, which I suffered with when I was in corporate, is that you just get glued to the computer, almost like a vortex, and then you come out of it and you're like, wow, I've been sitting here for like 12 hours, you've forgotten to drink your water, your posture has been completely compromised due to lack of ergonomics. Ergonomics is just basically, if you don't know about it, just like obviously getting your seat that's correct to your right height, your hands at the right level, computer at a suitable distance, at a good eye height as well. Taking those intermittent breaks, and eating, of course, and not eating terrible foods, eating foods that are correctly going to support your nutrition. So, yeah, I could talk about this all day, but let's get down to the nitty gritty now and the juicy bits. And so here is the documentary. So I would probably just give a little, because I'm a context creator. So I just want to say it's about someone who's going to narrate and talk to you about, the theme of, the documentary. You're going to get a couple of people talking about how they have suffered. I was actually, if I recall back to the interview, I was quite in a moment with, because one of my colleagues, when I used to work in corporate, a young guy, really, really lovely. I don't know whether or not I should mention his name, but he has since, you know, he's a really fantastic runner, I'll tell you that. Gosh, he could be like, I'm going to just go take my hour lunch break. And he just ran like, like 20 kilometers. And I thought, like, how on earth do you do that? That's incredible. But yeah, he was, I really loved it, very vulnerable and honest. And he would talk about that he was running for charities for men's mental health. And always speaking about like the ideas that, men don't get to speak about their feelings, or society doesn't allow it. And that energy was really embodied in me at the time. And I thought, like, I really want to know more about it. Like, and also at the time when I was working, I was attracting lots of men, and I just thought, okay, this is obviously a theme of, a phase that I was going through that I needed to address, the imbalance or inequality, or some form of discrimination, perhaps, that why do men have to be strong and can't be vulnerable? Why can women talk about their feelings and men have to suck it up or have to man up? So there was a lot of emphasis, I think, from the big interview that I had. But of course, when you end up watching the documentary after talking or blabbing for 2 to 3 hours, to see like segments cut out and what they've taken from it, it's quite interesting, actually. And you think like, oh, that's out of context, but I see what you were trying to put in there. And, and then there's obviously at nearing the end, a couple of tips that both me and a fellow psychologist spoke about that maybe you can implement into your life, and just, take some golden nuggets from it. That's all I'd like to offer, is there's some golden nuggets. Take what is relevant to you, and then try implement it into your life. And of course, if you need some further support, there is always support out there, whether it might be from me, whether it might be from your family or the community around you. It's always available. So never think that it's not. And more often than not, when you think you're struggling and you're the only one, because everyone looks like they're living the perfect, I make the joke, the desperate housewife life where everything's perfect, like Brie Vanderkamp, you'd be very surprised to learn, if you actually just spoke up a bit, or spoke out, a lot more people be like, actually, things are not really as they seem, but, we're just trying our best to manage, and you'll find a sense of community within that as well. Yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play this documentary. I think it's like a 25-minute, something around there. But what probably will happen is, obviously, because this was a documentary, so there might be some intermittent music playing. And then you'll be like, oh, what's happening now? But that, at the time in the documentaries, there's just some images being shown of just like some suggestions, like visually. So just hold out for that. And if you have any questions, any comments, or any feedback, which I really enjoy from my podcast, is that I'm very grateful that all my patients are listening to them. And if not, sharing that with their friends and family as well, so thank you. But I really enjoy the feedback and interaction I get, that, when you come for your session, then we can talk about, I listened to this podcast episode, and, it really brought up something within me, or, I really thought about this, or I've tried to start implementing this technique, and, it's been really, really helpful. So I told my friends about it. And if anything, it's just acting as like a form of a icebreaker, and really putting us into place to start talking about it. And, if anything, I set things in motion for you to go, maybe I'm going to try and be a little bit vulnerable. Maybe I can be the guy in my circle, or girl in my circle, to start these things. So yeah, as always, some food for thought. And because obviously it's going to be a bit of this is going to be a bit of a longer podcast, I will leave the documentary on that note. And look forward to hearing any feedback, whether you want to just text me or not, or just say, yeah, you know what, actually, I've been dealing or struggling a bit more with mental health at the moment. Maybe there's something we can do. Got a lot of techniques at the moment. I've been studying a lot. It's been a very, very immersive year of education for me. So I literally feel at the moment very empowered with lots of tools that can help with emotional health, CBT, cranial, cognitive type issues I'm going to use, down to muscles, down to body, down to gut, down to hormones, down to physical, down to posture, down to weight, down to trauma. Like I almost feel as if I've got the whole, and I was joking with my partner the other day that I feel like my niche at the moment is that I'm studying so much to understand the whole, which is important in holistic therapy, that I'm a specialist in not being a specialist, which is kind of funny. You always got to have the odd ball out there doing something a bit different. But I really, really value like just trying to get people in and just trying to really understand the conditions and see how we can address it to get you the long-term results that you're seeking. So yeah, on that note, nice to chat to you, or chat to myself and metaphorically chat to you, and look forward to hearing what you say and your feedback. Yeah? Okay, bye. And just one last thing that I forgot to say, that if you want to watch this documentary online, which is on YouTube, I will be pasting the link in the description of this episode, and also just to let you know, because you're listening to this audibly, that the title of this documentary is called How to Improve Your Mental Health in This New World. Okay, bye.
Hello, my name is Tess. Everyone knows someone who suffers with mental health, even if they aren't aware of it. It's a secret enemy that has taken many people. This COVID-19 pandemic has taken a massive toll on many people's physical health, but more so on people's mental health. Many of those affected have sought help. However, a lot of people have fought this in silence. Throughout this show, we aim to throw away this stigma of not being able to talk about mental health. It affects more people in the UK than you may realise. Now, let us dive into the topic of our show. We've spoken to some individuals who've opened up to us about their own mental health issues.
I'd probably say the mental health issues that I find with social media is more to do with anxiety, which of course leads on to depression.
So I suffer with anxiety. I've suffered with it ever since I was in year 9, year 10. Environment, like the silence and being close to people, I didn't even feel comfortable with it, and I never really have.
I definitely spend too much time sort of worrying about things that you don't need to worry about, but it's like in my head, I choose to worry about it. So I'm always need to be stressing about something.
I experience the mental health issues through anxiety mainly, sometimes depressive symptoms, sometimes addiction as well, but mainly anxiety, especially with the pandemic.
Towards when I was becoming a teenager, probably about 13 or 14, but I didn't really understand it that well. I'd wrap myself up in my own mind that much that it was killing me, and I woke up and I just said, I just don't want to be here.
I'm just scared about people like judging me, and like if I post it or if I do something or if I share something, it could have like a little backlash against me. Like I feel like people might judge me, not necessarily online. What I'm more scared about is the fact that people might judge me like offline. Like people might talk to their friends like, oh, did you see this picture that Lucy posted today? Oh, look at that and stuff like that. That's what I'm mostly scared of.
With being stuck in lockdown, social media has provided a look into the outside world, and it's the only way to look into the outside world because you can't go anywhere. So it's like, how are you supposed to know what's going on in your friends' lives and your family's lives? Social media is one of the only places really where you can go and do that.
Social media has been like my go-to, purely because it's just easily accessible. Like I can just pick up my phone and I can just go on like Instagram or Facebook and I can just see everything on there.
I have experienced an impact on my mental health after using social media, especially in lockdown. Prior to lockdown, I didn't really use social media, but because of the lack of distractions and working on my laptop and being surrounded by social media, I feel like I've not been able to get away from it.
It's given me so much time to sort of focus on things that usually I would try and ignore and help ease my own anxiety. So because we've got so much time in our hands, it's sort of, you've got so much time to look through social media, to sort of look at what other people are doing, that usually you don't have that much time because you're in the real world and you've got work and you've got university. I think it sort of gives you more time to sort of focus on those things that you try so hard in normal life to combat.
It's not really real life, and I think a lot of people don't see that. They take it as face value, when really a picture that's on Instagram set up by somebody who's an influencer, for example, could probably take an hour to set up, and we don't see what's behind the scenes.
The youth of today especially are always doing something for a like on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok now. A lot of people nowadays will edit photos. I know a lot of girls do. It's not even like little bits anymore. It's, you've got to have perfect curves, you've got to have big boobs, big bum or whatever. You can get wrapped up in thinking, well, why is a boy going to want me when they can have this girl? But you've got to come to terms with the fact that social media is just one snapshot of what people want you to see.
It's sort of a platform that you can kind of submerge your own life into, and it's kind of hard to separate those two realities from the unreality of it.
Facebook nowadays it's more to do with sharing sort of little videos and stuff, whereas Twitter's a bit more cutthroat and it's a bit more banter / jokey, but a lot of the time jokes go too far.
People think they're entitled, and because of like freedom of speech and stuff, they think they can go about saying and doing whatever they want, and they really can't, and they really shouldn't, because it's things like that and people like that have massively adverse effects on other people's mental health.
There's ways to voice your opinions, and especially with hate, if you don't like something, don't watch it, don't listen to it. It's that simple. If
someone's going to use social media to do that and attack someone, it's just spiteful, and they're quite cowardly, to be honest. You don't really feel any repercussions of it either, because you're just saying it to some random person online.
A form of depression and anxiety that occurs is because you can't express yourself. If you're bottling something up, it's just going to build and build and build and build, and you need to get it out. Men don't talk about their mental health as much as women, because again, it stems back from a social conditioning.
I feel like there is a bit more of a stigma towards mental health in males.
You know, people are like, oh, man up, it's fine. Like, it's a very common phrase, being told to man up, and it's like, that's not healthy at all, because men have feelings as well.
Why is that weird? If women can do it, why can't men do it?
Men feel like they can't talk about their problems. They don't feel like they can go to therapy or counselling, and, you know, pulling it back to stuff like being told to just get over it and man up, and like, it's not a problem. And I think that is something that puts men at a higher risk for sure, because they feel suppressed.
It is tough because, yeah, you want to be strong, you want to be a man. It's difficult, but I think it shows strength, personally. A lot of people think having a mental health disability and talking about it openly is a sign of weakness. And, you know, all men cry at the end of the day. Everyone in life cries. There's no shame in that.
If you need help, go and seek it. It won't hurt you, and trust me, you will feel a lot better.
Did you know that within a year, 1 in 4 people will experience mental health problems? This is a very high statistic. So make sure that you do not instantly judge someone, and be kind. You never know what they're going through. Always check in on people, because it might be just what they need. We need to remind ourselves to be kind to others, including ourselves. Social media has been labelled as a cause for many mental health issues. But to what extent is this true? We've spoken to psychologists to see how much social media harms our minds.
finding ourselves stuck at home, not being able to interact with the people we love and friends, we tend to fail. We tend to break down. We tend to stop being as productive as usual. And this has to do with the fact that interacting with people makes us happy, makes us go forwards, it incentivizes us to do stuff. However, when that's ripped apart from us, which was what happened due to quarantine, most people tend to break down, lose hope, and behave in completely different ways that they used to do. I knew I wanted to become a psychologist for over 4 years now. It's something that I'm passionate about, and it's something that can help thousands of people in the long run. I hope one day to be able to be helpful for everyone that needs it.
I came into the work that I do to help people with trauma because I actually suffered a lot of series of traumas. My father died when I was young, my stepmother with bipolar, and through a lot of work and self-help for myself, I was doing work on myself first, I started realizing benefits of healing.
So social media was firstly created as a communication device, as a way of being able to speak with people that are not near you, to connect different communities, different countries. And it's a beautiful thing, and if it was used properly, it would be amazing. However, use it for negative reasons and can do whatever they want without consequences.
Year on year, we are like becoming the most technologically advanced race. We have computers, we have social media, we can literally see second by second what our friends, what our families are doing. Yet we are actually becoming one of the loneliest species on the human planet at the moment.
The worst part about social media is that it allows anyone to do whatever they want without consequences, as you can make an account without your name or your email, so it's impossible to track back to you, and you can say anything you want to anyone. That allows people to be mean and to be harsh on people, and that can trigger mental disorders on the people that are receiving it. Social media is just a tool, and tools can be either good or bad depending how we use them. Think of a hammer. It was created to facilitate construction. It makes using nails possible without it being a hassle. However, if you try to use a hammer to clean a window, you're going to break the window. Therefore, going back to social media, they're using a tool that was not initially created for that, and they're doing that with it, making it a bad thing.
There was actually a study done in the US that they said 39% of people agree that they no longer feel close to anyone, and the UK and the rest of Europe are not actually that far behind it. Like anything in life, we can see things in a positive or a negative aspect, right? And when we hear the words anxiety and depression, again, we're focusing on these ideas that this is something very, 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 very negative. What I'd like to also encourage people to do is actually flip it on its head and see it that this is actually a signal from the body. Because if nothing was ever going wrong, just like if you're driving a car and there wasn't a warning light that came on saying, oh, something's wrong with the engine, or maybe you need fuel, you do nothing about it. And what I think we need to do is, first of all, stop insulting these signals, right? Stop saying, oh, it's a sign of weakness because I have this feeling, or maybe it's a sign of madness that I'm experiencing that. So it's all about coming back to a point that we assume responsibility, and that we can see something in a positive, saying that, okay, this is a sign I need to change. This is a sign I need to start doing something new, or making a proactive effort. And then again, it's going to be a way or a means of actually starting to change yourself and starting to find happiness. Because that's the ultimate goal of life, is just to be happy. And it seems that everything that we're doing or being posed with in social media is just preventing that. People have to actually start being in their strength and in their power and saying, you know what, I'm okay to be like this. I'm okay to be vulnerable. I want to speak about my emotions. It's safe and it's healthy. And we just need people to constantly say that it's safe and it's healthy. It's all right. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to cry. You are a human. You are not a robot. Please express yourself. Absolutely.
It can be concerning to know how much social media can affect our mental health. And with this new reality due to COVID-19, constantly being stuck at home means that we're using our phones more than usual to keep up to date with our friends and family, or just to pass the time. You would think that constantly spending time with our household would mean that we don't need to spend all of our time on social media, but this is not always the case. It can be boring. Having nothing to do during lockdown can magnify our thoughts and feelings and make it even more of an uncomfortable situation. We welcome back our researcher Georgia as she takes a look at what people have been up to during lockdown to make it more interesting.
Lockdown brought many good and bad experiences, but let's face it, we all enjoyed not having to do our hair for 3 months. However, it did get a bit boring. So, like a lot of people, we all picked up some new hobbies, some that we've done for years, some that we haven't ever done before. I picked up roller skates. Never thought I'd be able to do it. Still can't. But you know what? It was all just fun and games, just to help time fly by. Let's see what you guys all got up to.
Hobbies have been a good thing during this lockdown. They've given us all something to do and to focus on. For me personally, I've read enough books to start a library. I've taken up painting on stones, and I've walked the equivalent of Land's End to John O'Groats, all within a 5-mile radius of my house. Although hobbies have always been a good way to distract and relax our minds, this is not always the answer when someone is struggling with their mental health. We welcome back our psychologists as they advise us on how to help us when we're struggling with our mental health.
It's important to note that not all mechanisms work for everyone, and that there is thousands and thousands of methods of coping mechanisms out there for people. I do recommend for everyone to try as many as they can until they find whatever they think is the best method for them.
So hobbies would be things that make you happy, and that can literally be whatever. And again, very personalized to your personality. It might be for some older gentlemen to do chess. It might be someone to play football. It might be someone to do cooking. It's not limited, or even dancing. It's just what serves you for your highest purpose, what makes you happy. Not what social media is telling you that makes you happy. It's what makes you happy.
Hobbies gives us a routine in a day. It keeps us focused and it keeps us doing something that we like. For example, growing a plant. When you water the plant every day at the same time of the day, you start making a routine, you start doing the same thing every day, and that keeps you going. You look forward to that moment, you know that's going to happen, and it helps you forget about stressful things and not panic about what you can't or can do on the day.
Have to change your whole lifestyle. So that goes with changing your diet. Are you physically exercising? Are you doing meditation? To acknowledge the toxic people in your life. There are people that can add to your life, they can add to your value, or they can take away. And it's being in that strength to actually say, you know what, this group of people like to do drugs, they like to party too much, they like to drink a lot. but you don't personally like that, but you're going into these groups for whatever reason, and you're doing things against your nature, but you come home in this depressed state, but then you go and smash yourself with drugs, and you got to then take that check-in and say, that's toxic. I think the most important thing is that you have to be the inspiration for yourself as well as be an inspiration for others. People underestimate sleep, and this again will come back to social media, is that with even the lighting on our phones, it will actually inhibit our brain to switch off because of this brightness of the screen. So I always recommend to put your screen completely on low light, because the first thing that people do when they wake up is boop, boop, boop on the phone.
It's been proven to be quite effective for people with anxiety to sit down, close their eyes and count to 10, drawing each number as they count it in their head and seeing them created in their mind. And then once they reach 10, to open their eyes and keep going with the day.
Coming from South Africa and also living in the UK, it's a massive thing that people are really active into drinking. And drinking really distorts the mind. So by changing that and decreasing your drinking, you're not polluting your liver as much. And by not polluting your liver as much, your body will start to function a lot better.
I always encourage families and friends and everyone else that I know to seek professional help whenever they feel like they need it. It's a problem in this society that we've created a stigma with asking for help.
Who are we? We are vulnerable human beings, right? But we're not acting like that. So if we start to speak out, because I always say it's our right to have a voice, but it's our responsibility to make it heard. What are we feeling? Because when we're feeling completely alone, that person's feeling completely alone in that one. But when you start to speak about it, then we're creating a sense of community with each other. And then that will bring that sense of belongingness back to each other. And you can do community projects, do your hobbies, do things together, because that is what's natural for our being.
Going and asking for help is usually the strongest possible thing you can do.
Remember, these coping methods are a general guide to help people who are suffering with their mental health. But if you feel that they're not working for you, then feel free to use the many services available to help you. This pandemic has made it difficult for many people having to face a new reality. But by continuing to be open about our feelings and communicating with your loved ones, you can get the support that you need to help you through the dark times. As this show ends, please join talented local singer Jack Cattell in his parody. And remember, this is not COVID forever. Stay safe.
They try to keep us off the pavement, told us to isolate, 'cause if not, you'll be in danger of a deadly disease. You asked would I like to go stock up on toilet roll, get some hand sanitizer. If you can, you turned to me and said, Corona won't last forever, so pull yourself together. Well, I know that this strain is causing pain, but don't you worry, Baz has got a plan. Just sing happy birthday while you wash your hands. They try to calm the hysteria, but all night long, all I see is news headlines, and they're all telling me that I'm going to die from this thing. So don't leave the house if you show any symptoms, just self-isolate for the 14 days, and by then you're probably gonna feel better again. Corona won't last forever, so pull yourself together. Well, I know that this strain is causing pain, but don't you worry, Bazza's got a plan. Just sing happy birthday while you wash your hands. Corona won't last forever. Corona won't last forever. Corona won't last forever. So stay safe, we'll get through this together.